Bam! What up, Yang Gang? We got a special day for you today. We got Tom from Nerds for Humanity, NFH for short, is joining us for the daily news today. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good, and I want to thank you, boys, for also being a supporter of OTP of the People, which is the side project kind of nonprofit effort that I'm working on.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad to be here and excited to chat with you.
Boom. Ofthepeople.us.
Support it. Check it out. And if you know of any candidates who are running that aren't on there, please tell them to just put themselves on there. It takes 5 minutes, helps them get more exposure.
Perfect. All right. So the first article we're going to talk about is going to be the Fox News article here about the Mississippi Representative Benny Thompson, who explains why he was the only Dem to vote against the massive HR-1 election bill. So it's no shock that this is a very partisan vote, because HR-1 is very, very comprehensive, massive changes to increase voter turnout. It's automatic voter registrations. You don't have to opt in. You have to go in these special hoops to vote, to learn to vote or to register. It gives every state access to mail-in voting. There's a whole bunch of things that it really does do. And actually, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I find it very interesting that in politics, it reminds me of Obamacare, where like you can get people to be against Obamacare, but then when you tell them what's in it, they're actually for most of the provisions.
Right.
So I've encountered, especially on Twitter, a lot of people who are vehemently opposed to HR-1, saying it's the end of democracy as we know it. And then when you read the bill, you're like, wait a minute, okay, there's same day voter registration, early voting, easier to register at the DMV, verified paper ballot provisioning, campaign finance reform, matching small donations 6-1.
That's a huge one.
Requiring independent commissions to draw congressional district lines
every 10 years.
What's not to like? This is all very reasonable. If you love democracy, then you should be supportive of HR-1, in my opinion.
Well, and that's the thing I'm seeing is most of the pushback on Twitter and other forums is people saying that it's really people doubling down on their ideology. This will make it easier to steal a vote than ever.
I guess they're tying it to the whole stop the steal kind of conspiracy theory. But what about the anti-gerrymandering, the 6-1? I mean, the 6-1 matching is great. I mean, shouldn't we wash out the influence of rich donors? Like this should be a bipartisan thing. Like I would not be surprised if Trump had proposed something like HR-1. People would be like, "Oh, this is the greatest thing ever."
Yeah, get money out of politics, y'all.
Yeah.
But I just want to kind of bring up it's this long article about why he voted no against them. But I want to quote this guy. He says right here, my constituents opposed the redistricting portion of the bill as well as the section on public finances. Thompson said in a statement to Fox News, I always listen and vote in the interest of my constituents. The legislation requires states to establish independent redistricting commissions to carry out a once-a-decade withdrawing of congressional districts in an effort to avoid partisan gerrymandering. And it talks about here about the public financing system for small donor donations. It's just all these different things, right? So I have an actual Twitter thread I want to show you guys too. So there's people on the right that talk about how demonizing it is. Then there's people on Twitter like Nina Turner who make it very easy to see what it does. Here it is. HR-1.
Yeah, nice.
Enact automatic voter registration and gerrymandering, set up public finances of elections, expand early voting, prevent voter purges. That's a big one too. Expose dark money and counter Citizens United. The bill is enormously important. We need to end the filibuster. So she spells it out perfectly clear right there. That gives you everything you need to know without diving into it and having to read the article or the bill itself, which is like 600 pages.
Yeah. And you know, that congressional redistricting stuff is, if you're a Republican, you should be in support of anti-gerrymandering, because when the Democrats control a state, they do just as much gerrymandering as the Republicans do. And
Absolutely.
so having a commission that requires 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 5 independents to agree on the district lines
Mhm.
seems like it's you know, it's in everyone's interest. The only people that would be against this are the people who really are vested in
Mhm.
this kind of polarized duopoly.
Yeah. Who stands to
But
benefit the most?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the thing. Like I really, it is frustrating that people can be opposed to a bill, and I'm not expecting them to read all 600 pages, but maybe read the 1-page summary. You know, just go on Wikipedia, read the key provisions, and you know, but that's not where we are as a democracy right now. I think we basically, like, there's a lot of bumper sticker analysis,
Mhm.
and that it's hard to make the right calls in complex topics with
Well,
just like, I'm against freedom, I'm pro freedom. It's never that simple.
well, and something else that Mia pointed out that I forgot to mention here is that he actually helped write the bill.
Oh, he was a co-sponsor.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
co-sponsor, part of the legislation along with the rest of the Democratic caucus. So I don't know. Well,
Yeah, I mean, now in this guy's defense, you could take the position that the role of a congressperson is simply to reflect the opinions of their constituents.
right.
But I kind of feel like, well, if you're in Congress, you're not, you know, if that were your role, then we could just do the Swiss model and have a referendum on
That's
all
right.
major bills.
Direct
So
democracy.
you're supposed to exercise judgment, and you're supposed to reflect the values and goals of your constituents, but you don't need to take a poll for every single bill, because your
Mhm.
constituents probably didn't read the 600 pages either. But maybe in theory, you, having co-written it and having a staff, and that's your full-time job,
Mhm.
you should really think about it and then do the right thing for your country and for the district.
Mhm.
But you know, he's probably worried that he'll get that this will be brought up against him when he tries to run for re-election.
Yeah.
And if all of his constituents are like listening to Fox and stuff, then that's trouble for him.
That's what I worry. That is this a move on him on his own political career, like as far as
Probably.
securing himself to be a centrist Democrat, to be the Joe Manchin of Mississippi.
Yeah. Joe Manchin. Then there was that senator from Arizona who
Oh,
voted against the minimum wage, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
They're I mean, on the one hand, I like the fact that the Democratic Party has at least some voices that, you know, it's a pretty diverse
Mhm.
spectrum.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, you worry that even these blue dog Democrats probably are for, like, he's probably for HR1 as a co-sponsor of it, but he feels like he's being held hostage by this kind of like machine that drums up outrage and grievance.
yeah.
And, you know, like, you get the Lauren Boberts and Marjorie Taylor Greens, who just, they do not go deep into policy as far as I can
Well,
tell. I think they're very
if,
much like, just like, you know, one-liners.
if you're letting two conspiracy theorists affect how you do your job, you're not doing a very good job. You know, that's
Yes,
my analysis
yes.
on that one.
And the one wrinkle there is, it's not just two conspiracy theorists. Like,
Well,
I think I saw a poll that said 1 out of 3 Republicans believes that Trump won by a landslide. Like,
Lance,
still.
yeah, yeah. He has 30% control over the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. Let's
Yeah.
just be honest. And also, Trump actually did a cease and desist order to the RNC and to the Republican PAC. I can't remember the Republican Party's fundraising people. He actually wanted to do a cease and desist to make them not be able to use his name for fundraising. Which I think is kind of odd. He's trying to, you got to donate to his PAC for him to help people
Right.
nominated.
Yeah.
But
That's really interesting. Like, he's kind of seizing money and control from the RNC, and he's like, no, there's no RNC. It's the Trump National Committee, the TNC.
Well, we have Matt Nelson here in the comments section. I'm gonna bring this up. He's he's the Republican chair of my hometown. He said one of the problems with HR1 is federalism. Voting is supposed to be powers left to the states and not Congress. I 100% agree with that a little bit, because forcing election laws, election are state-ran ventures. But we could also say that about the Equal Rights Act. Like, slavery is, ended, so you have rights to vote. So there is a gray area. So it's one of those things where I kind of agree. That's one of the criticisms I had of it, is saying that the federal government is telling every state how they got to run their elections. So I do see that kind of as a pushback moment. That's worth at least discussion.
Yeah. I mean, I would take the position. Now, I tend to be further along, kind of slight bias for federalism, to the extent that, yes, states should have a lot of autonomy to express their views and run their states and all that kind of stuff. Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But in terms of the most basic act of this country, like what makes America truly great, is that everybody has a vote, and everybody should have a voice in their representation. And the definition and ease and fairness of access to that ballot box seems to me to be something that supersedes any individual state's kind of interpretation of democracy. Because, take it to an extreme, like, I probably would not be able to vote in some states had it not been, the federal civil rights effort and at the federal level. So, yeah, I get it. I get that states don't want, like, DC running their lives, but you got to let your people vote, right? Everybody should have a voice.
I think the easiest pushback, and that was my initial reaction, was the federal government is overreaching. Mm-hmm. My initial conservative side of my brain's like, wait a minute, this state ran elections, but state runs elections, yes, but they don't decide your rights. Voting rights is a constitutional thing. So to me, it's a federal thing when it comes to voter registration, when it comes to voting rights. So the federal government should be able to say, no, you can't suppress votes. You can't purge people from your voter registry. It's not right. It's unconstitutional. You're making it harder to vote. That's part of what's great about this country, is voting. You're born with the right, or you earn that right through whatever channels comes about, right? So to me, that's where I would push back on that, Matt, is voting rights is a federal thing. It's a constitutional thing. You can't take people's voting rights away.
I would also call out, and I'm not saying Matt, I don't know Matt, but there are definitely some Trump Republicans who are vehemently opposed to HR1, saying, hey, the federal government shouldn't get involved in elections. But those same people were saying that Vice President Pence, as the vice president of the federal government, should not have accepted the state's certified results from the presidential election.
There's some mental gymnastics right there. Then it's federal.
So it's like, wait, what happened to states' rights? So I don't know, like, it's
a slippery slope. It's a weird, murky line, but
I feel like politics right these days, it's like, if you took away the capital R and capital D, it would not make a lot of sense how is this person who's like for law and order now okay with, like, what they call the peaceful protests inside the well of the Senate? Like, and it's just so weird how, and I'm sure Republicans will call out hypocrisy on the Democratic side too.
But it's just because it's real.
Yeah, so I'm not saying either party is perfect, but it's just I just wish people would focus on solving problems and be logically consistent. And I know that's naive, but it would be nice if we could get closer to that someday.
Well, my biggest thing is the voter registration is obvious to me, but the one is the publicly funded rewarding small grassroots donations. It's the cap on that is $200 per individual. So the most you can donate as an individual is $200, and they'll match up to six times. That's $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
So our tax money, you'd pay $200, I'd pay $200, but the federal government would kick in our tax money because money is power, is representation, is our voice. They would match. They give our money back to that candidate in the form of $1,000 or $1,200 more dollars. So that's the cap on that too, guys. There's a lot more details in there, but we don't have time to really nitpick over it. But this is a must. It's got to happen.
I think it's great. I think
Yeah.
it's great, and I hope it happens, and I'm sure the House is going to pass it. I guess it will come down again to, that 50-50 Senate. Thank God. By the way, I think we should acknowledge that the great people of Georgia saved our ass by at least can you imagine if we didn't have those 2 Democratic seats in the Senate right now? We could get nothing done.
Nothing's done.
So kudos to Georgia.
Yes, 4 years of stalemate. Just a lame duck for 4 years.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to everyone out there knocking on doors.
Yeah.
And
old Andrew was down there. It was great.
Stacey Abrams deserves all the credit in the world for taking a loss like a champ, like a true leader. She didn't complain. Well, she complained a little bit because they did kind of shut down some of her stuff, right? But when it's done is done. She said, you know what? There's no point in talking about it. I'm going to make sure this never happens again by getting people out there to vote. And that's Stacey Abrams deserves. And I'm not the biggest Stacey Abrams fan, but she deserves all the credit in the world for what she did in Georgia. That is significant.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing all of us can agree on is that had Stacey Abrams not worked so hard on voter registration and voter activation, the Senate would not be Democratic right now, and we would not have passed the stimulus, and we would definitely have no chance of getting HR-1.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I think it's important to say that HR-1 is symbolic because it means it's your number one priority coming out of the House of Representatives, right?
Yeah.
So it's symbolic. It really needs to happen. This is almost a virtue signal. Say this is what we stand for. Period.
Yeah.
Now let's get everybody on record who's for it, who is against it. So you have one turd in a toilet bowl in Mississippi that decided to, I don't know, vote in his own interest, I guess, not for the interest of his people. But yeah, guys, we'd love to hear more about this in the comment section from you. And are you for it? Are you against it? Give us a like, share, and a subscribe, and all that normal business we say at the end, right? But also, while we're here, guys, the big thing is, Tom, of the people.us.
Yeah.
Candidates, man. So we got to make sure you guys go check that out. If you have a local candidate, like I'm going to talk to my local candidates and be like, hey, have you heard about this? You should go check this out. It's a way of finding resources and volunteers. Go ahead and tell people what it's about, Tom.
So basically, it's like Yelp for local candidates. And the premise behind it is that if you want better representation in Congress and in the Senate, you need more competition. And if you want more competition, one way is you get more people to run for Congress, but it's a long shot because congressional races are super expensive. So the other angle for other people is to support candidates who are actually running for local offices like city council or state assembly or county commissioner, those kinds of things, because that is the NCAA D1 of who gets picked and drafted to run for Congress. And interestingly enough, those local races are won and lost by sometimes just a few hundred votes. And their total campaign budgets are usually just a few $1,000s. So when you think about all of us, like, can we get someone into Congress in a really expensive media market? Very, very hard. Can we get someone in that same geographic area to get on the city council, mayor, or county commissioner? Way higher probability. And then after they get there, they have a better chance of making it into Congress. So the best thing that folks can do is if you see anyone running for office, please ask them to list themselves on Of the People, because if your for us as a project, we need critical mass. And right now we have 13 candidates. So that's really exciting just for the first, couple months of being live. And we'd love to see that grow. And we'll be adding new features. Like we added filtering, we added external links, embedded videos, and there'll be more kind of features coming. It's an all volunteer effort. And it's built by a few people who in their day jobs work in the tech industry. So like, we are not worried about executing in terms of building the technology, but we do need people to help us spread the word and get more candidates listed.
Okay, we got to do it, guys. There's your action item, Yang Gang.
Yeah, if you recruit one candidate for OTP, you'll be doing a huge job, not just for that candidate, but for the whole effort.
That's right. All right, guys. So go do your thing. Talk to your candidates and get them all over there, man. We got to get this, like you said, Tom, critical mass.
Yeah, it's free. Takes them 5 minutes.
Yep. All right, guys. So that's it for this one. We'll talk to you guys later. Like always, Yang Gang.
Gang gang.